Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. The government of India under Prime Minister Modi has done a real good job in many fields. And I was extremely happy when after 3 decades of inaction on education front, 3 decades, imagine it, the Modi government came up with the NEP, National Education Policy, and I was all praised for it. For the first time, there was emphasis on developing scientific temper, on developing a spirit of inquiry. Right from the very beginning, there was a lot of talk about STEM subjects being given emphasis. But then the reality belies the policy. It appears that the whole policy has been either shed or has taken a right about turn, 180 degrees turn. Imagine that one of the premiers in India, sorry, the case here, in India, the state's premier is called the chief minister. And this chief minister, heading one of the major states, the capital state, behaves like a joker at times, as most of the chief ministers in India do. And he comes up with a brand new concept of teaching patriotism, as if patriotism is something that can be taught. The patriotism is not something that can be taught, it has to be inculcated. And if this capability is not inculcated, it is absolutely impossible to have. Either it's inborn, either you love your country or you don't love your country. How can you teach love? Love is instinctive. Love is from within. It cannot be fostered. It's just like, the Indian parents want the marriages of their children to be arranged so that they love each other. And the result is that the holy wedlocks become unholy deadlocks. And that's what happens in teaching patriotism. But then, do I pity him? No, because he is a tribe of the Indian politicians, which reflect the politicians all over the world. The only difference is that either they are absolutely mentally challenged, morons, and criminal. Of the 30 odd states, 80% premiers are unfit to be there, unfit to lead their states, the provinces. And Kejriwal, who came up with this absolutely zany idea. And then imagine the state education board accepted that within 2 days. After all, they were backed by Kejriwal. Now, since they're appointees and appointment is made at the will of the chief minister, they immediately accepted it. And in 2 days, they met, passed half a dozen rules, regulations, approved syllabi of more than 30 subjects. What sort of education are we giving our children? That's now. But then, is that enough? I was amazed to know that the state funded educational institutions are now offering courses in astrology, The role of the educational institution should be to equip the students for the productive and the enlightened role, not propagate discredited ideas and train them to cash in on other people's insecurity. Now, there's a central university in Delhi, IGNU, Indira Gandhi National Open University, and they have just introduced a new 2 year course in astrology. Imagine. All along, we have been telling high school students the earth is just a planet and sun is a star and sun is millions of miles away from the earth. And now at the master's level, we'll be teaching them that the sun goes around the earth and is at par with the moon. For the 1,000 odd universities, there are more than 1,000 odd universities. About 20 offer courses in astrology. Benares Hindu University has several departments related to Sanskrit where astrology courses are conducted. But then, Benares Hindu University was set up at different time, different milieu. But in the post-independence era, after the new educational policy has been promulgated, IGNU is the first well-regarded mainstream university to patronize astrology. Now, this needs to be discussed at two levels. In the context of modern astronomy and within the framework of astrology, astrology as a subject, as a discipline, is creation of the time when human perception of the universe was based on the principle seeing is believing. No proof, what your eyes see, you believe it. So the universe was assumed to be centered on the earth and on the human beings. There was no concept of the depth of the sky. Sky was just a tapestry, and the star patterns on it were taken to be physically significant. More importantly, it was assumed that the moments of the day carried divine signals. And if we are aware today of the cosmos as it is, there has been a sea change in our knowledge in the last 2000 years. A sea change. But are we reverting back 2000 years back? If what we know of cosmos today had been known 2000 years back, no sensible person would have talked of astrology. The fact that the concept of astrology is very popular, newspapers are filled with it, does not legitimate the concept of astrology, nor does its antiquity sanctify it. Of late, India has developed a split personality as a country and is more significant in education. On the one hand, we are proud of our IITs and the world class space and missile programs. We want our universities to figure prominent in the world list. We want our scientists to win the Nobel Prize. At the same time, we are developing an unhealthy obsession with ancient India. I remember reading that in 1862, imagine, Bapu Deva Sastri, who was the most outstanding astronomy scholar of his time, publicly declared that the ancient Indian astrology should be upgraded in the light of the modern accomplishments. Was it done? No. We can justly be proud of our ancient scientific accomplishment, we should be. But as intermediate state, we have got to ensure that that was not a definitive state. As a matter of fact, our problem is that we see our science versus their science. We forget that the science, development of science is a continuous process. And that process, initiated in India, of course, and Egypt, and then Greece, and then Europe. So it has been a continuum. So astronomy at that time, as I said earlier, was on the concept of seeing is believing, and we were not clear about the astronomy, so we believed astrology. Many mathematical famous equations were formulated and solved by the Indian astronomers in the context of explanation of the planetary orbits. But we forget and we often ignore the facts that we have to use the terms in the correct sense. There is a tendency, now here's a major point. There is a very, very significant tendency to use the word Vedic astronomy very loosely as an umbrella term for astronomy in the pre-Islamic times. It's not one period, it's a vast period. And it's an umbrella term. Till the Islamic impact was there, all that period would be Vedic astronomy. It came into effect 6 centuries before Christ. Vedic astronomy now talks of 27 or 28 star groups known as nakshatras and uses them to mark the position of geocentric planets and comets. Zodiac signs, weekdays, and the present day Vikram calendar, which are an integral part of the Siddhantic astronomy and astrological system based on it, do not figure in Vedic astronomy. So there's a gap. Now, there is a semi artificial sense of inadequacy while discussing astrology. There's a university in Gwalior, Jivaji. They have declared that Jyotir Vigyan will add a new dimension to the research of Hindu mathematics. Can there be Hindu mathematics and Muslim mathematics and Christian mathematics? Vastu Shastra, the mythological studies, agriculture sciences, space sciences. And this is a clear, blatant, dishonest attempt to lead impressionable minds into believing that the science 1500 years ago can be relevant for the modern disciplines like space science. There might be some inkling, but it was definitely in a nebulous state. And where we are today, we know that the stars are stars, that the nakshatras are the 28 groups of stars called nakshatras, is a very small minority of the totality of the stars. Now, another stupidity or rather misleading statement of IGNOU is that it promises that its astrological courses will create employment opportunities. That, of course, is true. When an astrologist puts up a signboard, Masters in Astrology, and from IGNOU University, people believe he'll be dishing out the same thing as a roadside astrologist is doing. But the stamp of the IGNOU will give him more credibility. But is it desirable? Recognized educational institutions, especially those funded by the government and the taxpayer, should equip their students for productive and enlightened roles in the world of today and tomorrow, not for going backward. Our education system should not propagate bogus or discredited ideas and train the students to cash out other people's insecurity. By teaching them astrology, we are promoting superstition, belief, which is misplaced, and it goes absolutely against the NEP, which talks of developing the scientific temper and the spirit of inquiry. How can there be spirit of inquiry if you believe that everything has been destined by the way the stars move? It is going to destroy the entrepreneurial skills. People are students are going to think, well, if I'm going to pass, I'm going to pass. So if the government wants to see India make a name for itself in global science and technology, if it really wants to develop the scientific temper, if it really wants to foster the spirit of inquiry, then there's urgent need. And the need is that it must not be seen as supporting pseudoscience. Today, pseudo nationalists, pseudo patriots, pseudo scientists are becoming very prominent. I'm hearing a number of such charlatans who are feeding on the people's belief, mistaken beliefs, wrong beliefs, outdated beliefs, baseless beliefs, and they're promoting them. But the great achievement that Modi government had done in bringing about NEP, National Education Policy, after the government's dithering for 3 decades, 30 years, is thought to be destroyed by the government winking at these actions of the 20-odd university, and some of them funded by the central government itself, like IGNO, BHU. But as I said, case of BHU is different. It was set up in a different time, in different milieu, in different circumstances. Is it not a time for the people to develop the real science temper? For the nation to believe that it is raring to go, and to ensure that the divide between our IT and IIS, Indian Institute of Science, trained graduates and postgraduates, and our MTechs do not succumb to such false premises, either being held up by the university like IGNO, which promises employment, but in fact is nothing short of defrauding people. This reversal of positive attitude to scientific temper and spirit of inquiry, this approach has to be crushed if India really wants to stand in front of the progressive world. And this needs to be done not today, but now. Every second's delay is suicidal. But are the mandarins listening? Let's see, wait and watch. And that process destroy hundreds of students' lives and destroy generations of the people who will nothing be but fatalistic believers, devoid of the action concept and any activity which is motivated by the spirit of inquiry. Thank you.